Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, everybody. Cowboy here, and it is 8:30 a.m. EST. Welcome to the show. We're taking a look here at the euro versus the dollar. Actually, we're going to look at it all, at least what we have time for. But we're looking at what could be a turnaround. There's been a slowdown in the increase of the euro, right? So this is on the daily chart. This is pretty high time frame, and this matters because as the dollar grows stronger, usually what you see is stocks, Bitcoin, everything else gets weaker. But in this case, it's not happening. And this is a reflection of money entering the United States. You basically have this move up here, and it kind of slows down, if you will, right? And usually when you see a slowdown like this, a strong move up, and then a steady bleed off like this, you'll see things fall, right? Now, how I drew this is pretty, it's a bit subjective. It's more just for you to see the trend or the, trend kind of slowing down, if you will. But understand that there's a decent chance we're about to see the end of this massive move up in the euro, right? Going back to the beginning of the year. So if I zoomed out even further and added some algorithmic, juju. Let me bring up the monthly as well. And the monthly still has some strength, but it is vulnerable. What really matters here is the weekly. The weekly has attempted to continue to rally upwards, and it just appears that it doesn't have the strength. If you look at the price action, we're seeing the highs that occurred at the end of 2020. And at that time, a lot of money got printed in dollars, and money was just kind of rushing back to people's countries. People didn't know what was going to happen. That the euro was getting stronger. And then after everybody realized things were probably going to do better in the US, money rushed out of the euro. I mean, that's the only way I can kind of think about how this went. It can also be that money tends to flow from the euro to the dollar, but then the euro has these moves up, right, after the move gets extended. So if you actually go back all the way to 2007, which is when basically, at the end of that 2008, mid 2008, every time the euro tries to come back, you'll notice that it gets slammed deeper. Right? It just keeps heading down. So this is probably just the latest version of that. But in 2022, at the end of 22, you'll notice it held its level and continued up. So it's just a question of this trend going back nearly 20 years appears to probably continue. Now, each time that this top out happens with the euro, you're looking at what is this approximately really from August of 2020 up until July of 21, so about a year. You have price kind of rock back and forth, and it might do that. We're already seeing it happen going back to June. We're now in October, so a good, what is that, July, August, September, October, 4 months. So we get another possibly 8 months of price kind of rocking back and forth, but it doesn't mean price is going to stay dead still. If it does continue to consolidate at this level, we should be able to see some action as price kind of rotates possibly like this and eventually starts to make its way down. This is possible what'll happen. Either way, we're starting to finally see some volatility after a multi-week, what is this, almost like a 2-month consolidation. Not very fun to trade forex during that time, not for the euro. Now there's been action elsewhere, but we're going to take a look at Bitcoin because we're looking at price, just coming off the all-time highs. And let me zoom in just a little bit here. So we had a new high made on Monday. And the question is, will the highs continue? There's a little bit of pressure right here, just in the local chart here. This is a pretty low time frame chart. This is a 30-minute chart. So if I look at the 3-hour, there's a fair amount of vulnerability in the charts right now, right? And Bitcoin has been doing so well. You always expect for there to be a pullback at some point. So the question is whether or not this will continue upward and make a new high, or if it's going to have some pullbacks. And pullbacks would be reasonable. Let's take a look at the liquidity on the Kingfisher to see where it is this morning. Okay, so let's zoom in on this a little bit. Okay, so liquidity is starting to actually surround price. You get a little liquidity here up at about 126.3, 126.7. We'll put that on the chart. 126.3, 126.7, because price wants to go to these areas. That's why we look at the Kingfisher. Without getting too far into the explanation, Kingfisher shows liquidity. Basically, what it really shows is liquidations on the leveraged exchanges. And as those build up, then the market makers have a lot of reason to push price towards those areas. So a lower side would be 123.3. So this has definitely moved up, way up. Right, so that yellow line right there is where price may want to go. And then there's one more level below that for Bitcoin. Let's take a look. And it's all around there as well. You know, it's not just that line, but those lines are where the real spikes are. Right about 123 on the dot. So a lot of liquidity has moved up. And it's all pretty close below price. In fact, I'm a little suspect that if we get a pullback, this area is where it's going to be, right? That would make a lot of sense. The question is, will we get a pullback? Well, you can see the trend is definitely slowing down, kind of like we looked at with the euro versus the dollar, right? You had this strong move up, new all-time high. Price tends to pull back at some point. And of course, you get these little pullbacks right here on Bitcoin, right? Little pullback here. Now, price could do like either way. It could either go grab this top liquidity, which is also Kingfisher liquidity. Just label that helpfully here. So it could pop up to grab that really at any time. Or it could drop down and grab those other liquidities. Gorilla, how you doing, sir?
I want to grab your liquidity.
Oh boy. All right. Well, let's start this off with a bang. You know, the big gorilla hands, man. They're gropey.
Very Harvey Weinstein like, you know.
Yeah. So for the moment, I was just trying to figure out whether or not Bitcoin is seed a local top, meaning like, does it need to take a rest? Does it need to cool off? Is it massive move up? I mean, Bitcoin is up going back to when I did say, I did a video last week, Bitcoin blast off, you know, and I called this bottom out pretty handsomely.
Yeah.
So let's see what the percent gain is in Bitcoin for that time. So we're looking at a 15% gain going back a week. So we're gonna be a little bit longer than that. What is that? September 25th. So 2 weeks. It's great. 15% in 2 weeks. We might see a consolidation or a pullback, right? So let's take one last look at liquidity here. Yeah, that's pretty much it for liquidity. So the lower levels are gone. People have taken their profit. Those trades are not on anymore. So right now, it does look like price may rotate between these lower bound of maybe 120 or something. And then it's going to have to make a decision at some point. You know, the higher bound would be 126. You're right around where the high is right now. Might spike up to grab liquidity. Remember those liquidity maps, they change hour by hour, minute by minute, technically. So we're just gonna have to see what Bitcoin decides to do. There's enough pressure to kind of keep it up in this area, but it appears that there will need to be a pullback. Now, where would the pullback possibly go? If this were the top that we just saw, then we can start to use some tools, right? So now your first kind of look for a pullback would be the top of the prior move. What do I mean by that? Well, if you zoom out and you just look at the price action, you have it move like this, like this, like that, and it may pull back to this move, which is 118,000. Could go there. It's possible. There also is a 382 just above that at 119.6. And if it did a 618 pullback, you're looking at like 115.5. So I'd say a pullback to the teens is pretty reasonable at this time. Just remember, we're in all-time highs. We're in October. Price could easily be held up, and we're just going to have to see how it goes. That's just how that works. One look at gold before we get out of here. We keep telling you, and we've been telling Algo Factory for literally years now, gold is just going to go up, and that's what it's done. And technically, it pierced 4,000 yesterday on some exchanges. Not on this futures exchange, but this is a gold spot, but there were exchanges where gold did go above 4,000. So this is where you start to get into the round numbers issue, where people are going to probably front run 4,000 and try to sell it off. And anything can happen. Look, this is what I told you guys in the video I made last night. Bitcoin's in FOMO. Gold is in FOMO. Fear of missing out. And that just means price can go up without any rhyme or reason. It means your pullbacks can be just gobbled up. Assets are rushing to the US. The world is afraid of war. This is why you're probably going to see, as we just talked about, the dollar start to gain some strength after years of, or at least several months of not having it. If I zoomed out here, this is the dollar against all of the other currencies. Not all of, but let's just say the major ones. And I mapped out like 3 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago, a double bottom here. That means the dollar could reverse course. The trend is clearly, possibly changing. Clearly, possibly. How you like that?
I like that. Clearly, possibly is always
clearly, possibly. So 60% of the time, it works all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go ahead and hop over to the live lab, the private live lab for Algo Factory. And we're going to handle requests. If people want to know, what is this chart going to do? What is that chart going to do? I know at some point, V, you're going to come out with some drips. You mentioned a couple weeks ago there were some drips. I think the data still hasn't quite come in on that, but
yeah, not yet. But
this
week looks promising.
So here's the thing about it. Like Algo Factory's 1, 2, 3 punch, really. We teach you how to build the algos, and we teach you what you need to know about trading, psychology, money management, all the things that if you do not know those things, you will fail trading, right? We also have the private live lab where we handle chart requests. We, look at charts that people want to see. And we have also geopolitical data and geoeconomic data that when the intelligence comes through, we're able to share it. Summertime's kind of dead. We usually don't see it during that time. It's just everybody's on vacation. And that's winding down now that we're starting to enter the fall. So we may get some pretty good data coming in. And we've had some killer data in the past, thanks to V the Gorilla. So, V the Gorilla, can you get us over to the private lab?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, follow us over. Don't wonder if, hey, should I try this out? You try out Rocky Road ice cream. You do Algo Factory. So join us. Be part of the most prolific trading community on God's green earth and learn to trade like a hedge fund pro. That being said, Cowboy, take us in, buddy.
Join us or die.
Just kidding. You're not going to die. We love you.